Hey everybody, my name is Nick Lowery, and I'm so honored and have been for 4 years now to work at Kannaway to help introduce the world to CBD and this new generation of hemp-based products that have very little to zero THC and that are really helping athletes. But part of this that's so important is that we share the lessons from this from our Kannaway sports athletes, and we'll probably even add people that are not athletes that are champions as human beings. And our first champion in our inaugural show is someone I've known for a long time, who is truly a class act and a great articulator of the stories of sport that we can all relate to. That's our goal, to help you have one new distinction every day that will help you get through that day with more intention, more clarity, more power, more persistence just to stay with it. So that's what Kannaway Sports and Kannaway Champions is about. And let me just tell you a little bit about Solomon Wilcots. He works with the Sky Network in England, covering the NFL. He works with the NFL channel 88, Sirius Satellite, and XM Radio. He also works with a data analytics company based in Cincinnati with a famous Cincinnati Bengal, Chris Collinsworth, and who does Sunday Night Football on NBC. And we're going to look at the analytics of not only the numbers in sport, but also the personal things that help you keep going through life. So with that, Solomon, I'm just so proud to have you on, and really couldn't think of a better person to start this with.
Well, Nick, thank you for having me. We greatly appreciate it, and I'm happy to be joining you. So you and I, when we get together, we have so much to talk about. So I plan on this being a lot of fun.
So we're going to start off with just really chronologically, at least initially, as you look back now, as we are, more than a few years since we played, those mentors, those adversities, those pathways, the famous Robert Frost poem, "Two paths diverged in the wood," and you chose a different one because of something that happened to you. Tell us something as you were growing up. You grew up in Riverside, California, I believe. Tell us about growing up. Who were the people, or what was one key experience as you look back that helped affirm for you the idea of being a champion by sticking with it?
Yeah, I ended up going out to Riverside, California. I was raised and I grew up in Compton, California. As you well know, it's an area that's very challenged economically, and it's an area that's challenged with a lot of crime. I grew up with friends. We had all played sports, and we had the option in terms of choosing which way to go, right? Two paths diverged in the wood. I chose the one less traveled by. I chose the one that hopefully would lead me to college, to earning a college scholarship. And so I decided to move with an older brother out to Riverside, California. And he offered me the opportunity to be in a better environment, go to a better school. And then when I landed in that environment, while it was very highly supportive, it was also highly competitive. You come to a new school, everyone already has their positions, and the coaches already have their guys who they prefer. And I had to kind of find a way to break through that. And so it was very challenging just to make my presence felt. It was challenging to uproot myself out of an environment that I had become very comfortable with. I knew the lay of the land back in Compton, California. I go out to Riverside. It offered an entirely new environment, but I also knew it was the one that would offer me a pathway to a better education, to a better way of life. I knew it could change the trajectory of my life by offering an opportunity to earn a college scholarship. And 3-4 years later, I was able to do that, to be able to attend the University of Colorado. It was a dream come true. And that was a moment that had crystallized for me that if you work hard, that if you remain focused, and even more importantly, if you're willing to sacrifice some things in order to get what you want, you're going to have to give some things up in order to reach out and grab the things that are much more meaningful in life. Then you can have the things that you want if you're willing to pay the price, if you're willing to work hard and dedicate your time, your energy, and your efforts. And So that crystallized a moment for me that really sort of set the path for the rest of my life.
Solomon Wilcots, NFL star, the NFL channel on Sirius XM. You had to learn how to focus, and now you get to a completely different environment. I mean, how different could it be than from Compton, California to the University of Colorado and Bill McCartney, and you were 1-10 that first year, and you had to deal with being part of a team that, you know, could have been branded a loser, but instead every year after that, your team got better. You went to, I think, 7-5 and 8-4, that sort of improvement. Bill McCartney is revered by so many players. Colorado went on to win a championship. Tell us what was one of the key messages of Bill McCartney. What made him a great mentor and a coach? What made him want to his players want to sacrifice for him?
I think it's a really good question. You know, where I played in high school, I remember my senior year, we go 14-1. We end up losing in the state championship game, but we had been undefeated for the entire season. And where I had kind of helped turn a program in high school from a loser into a winner, I remember when I chose to go to the University of Colorado, I remember a buddy of mine, he was going to USC. They're used to winning. He was like, "Are you going to go there?" You know, because he just couldn't see me, you know, being part of a program that didn't win. I said, by the time I'm done, I think we're going to get that turned around, because I thought it was such a wonderful climate. It was a beautiful school. And then obviously Coach Mack had such a wonderful fire about himself that by the time he was done talking with you, you wanted to run through a wall for him. He had a way of not only having a belief in you, but he made you believe in anything that he was talking about. He could sell the program to any young man and make him leave sunny California to come out to the high altitude of Boulder, Colorado, which is a beautiful place, by the way. And you're right, Nick, we couldn't win in the early going. I remember it was very tough to crack through Oklahoma, through the likes of what Tom Osborne was doing at the University of Nebraska. But, you know, I remember Coach Mack, he said when that first meeting, we were freshmen, he made us set our watches 10 minutes ahead of time. And he said, if you're not 10 minutes early to every meeting, to every class, to every practice, then you're late. And I remember him just barking at us and just really sort of drilling that down into us to help us to be accountable, to help us to be on time. And still to this day in my life, I set my watch 10 minutes ahead of time. You know, that's to not be late. And those are the things that he sort of drilled down into us to help us become a winner. By the time I left the University of Colorado, we did crack through. We did beat Nebraska. We were going to bowl games. And then we were able to recruit a class of players that 4 years later ended up winning a national championship with Coach Mack as the head coach. And that's something we're very proud of, to go from the bottom of the ladder all the way to the top of college football. It's not easy to do, but we were able to do it.
Awesome. So tell me an adversity, an injury, a defeat, something that really made you feel knocked off balance and that you might have a level of doubt you never believed you could before. What did you do? Tell us about that experience and how you turned it around.
You know, it was an injury. In fact, during my sophomore year, that was the year CU went 1-10. They won one game. Now, I missed that entire year, and I was sort of becoming a leader for the team and becoming a vocal member of the team. And then I was hurt in training camp. I tried to play that first game. My shoulder kept popping out. I had a subluxation of the left shoulder where it would dislocate. And you probably, being around a lot of athletes, you remember that. And I'm telling you, there's nothing more painful. The shoulder pops back in. You got to figure if you're going to keep playing through this. And I had to wear a harness just to keep the shoulder in the socket. And I'm essentially playing with one arm. And I remember getting ready for the second game of the season. I rolled over in bed one night, and the shoulder popped out in the middle of the night. And I remember going into the training room, and he said, "That's it. We're shutting you down." So I ended up having what's called a medical hardship. So I didn't play the rest of the season. I missed every game except that first one. So I had to go through that entire season, watching the program struggle with 10 losses. I had to go through that season after having surgery. It was a lot of pain. It was a painful rehabilitation process. And I had to really decide not only what kind of player I wanted to be, but what kind of student I wanted to be. For the first time, I got to settle in and just be a student first. But I had to really kind of take a step back and imagine, what is this going to end like for me? I needed to have a good education when I left the University of Colorado. But I also had goals of wanting to turn that program into a winner. I also wanted to leave a legacy that I could bring my kids back someday and say, hey, this is what I was a part of. I wanted to some way, shape, or form leave something behind that was very significant and spoke to my time spent there. And I just dedicated all my time and energy to getting a better quality education, to make sure that the athletic part of it was going to be something I could be proud of and look back upon. And lo and behold, I ended up leaving there with all of those things, a degree in English literature, having turned the program into a winner. And I get to go back holding my head up high, looking at that university as something that's a very significant part of my life.
You know, wouldn't you say also that if you're in the scouting department of a National Football League team and you see a player that's not only good on the field, but has the discipline to do well in class, don't you believe, as I do, kind of setting you up for this, but truly that is such a strong indicator of the character and the dependability of that player?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's what scouts look for. I think if you're looking for talent, whether it's in athletics or in business, in any type of industry, you're looking for young people who have had to persevere through tough and difficult times and found a way, some way, shape, or form, to pull themselves up, to persevere, and to overcome those moments of adversity. And then emerge on the other side a much more improved, much more enlightened individual. For young people who have gone through those things, I think everyone understands that that's a person who's going to be an asset to your company. That's a person who's going to be an asset to any company who's looking to move forward and build and have a vision of themselves, of having not only tremendous character, but being able to shape markets as you move forward. You need people who have been through something and understanding how to overcome and be able to build a life for themselves if they're going to help you to be able to build as a company.
So now you go from the University of Colorado and some real success there. As much as high school players notice that they hit a lot harder in college, they hit a lot harder in the NFL. And you're in Cincinnati. Mike Brown is the general manager and owner. And you're dealing with Sam Weiss, who's by all accounts a player's coach. But still, there's always the idea that you have to deal with pressure and you have to perform, get it done no matter what happens. Tell us about the difference between college and the pros. For the people that are watching, what I'm passionate about is how do we take our lives to the next level? Because we're going to go from childhood to college to the NFL and then look back at what are those lessons that all of us can relate to. So tell us about the NFL, and here you are now with Cincinnati and how you made the most of that.
Yeah, and being an 8th round draft pick, that's not a really high round pick. So you're very expendable. And I think you understand that every single day matters, right? And you've got to be able to impress the coaches. You've got to be able to impress the general manager and the ownership, to be able to help them to believe that you are a viable option in helping to build a winner. And what they need from young people is to come in, keep their head down, keep their mouth shut, just go to work and show that you can be productive, show that you can triumph over adversity. They're not going to make it easy on you when you come into training camp. You've got to be able to win over veteran players in the locker room. You got to be able to win over the coaches. You're going into meetings, you're being given a lot of information. in terms of the play design, in terms of the scheme that you're asked to run. And then you got to go out on the field the next day to turn those ideals into action. So you have to be able to process a lot of information very quickly, and then to turn that information into productivity the very next day. It's more than just a physical game. There's a mental game being played out there, as well as a psychological game. And on all three levels, you have to be able to show them that you're up to the task. As a very young player, I had to play right away. And you got to go through that training camp process where there's someone coming in every day and there's someone leaving, being cut or dismissed from the team every single day. After every preseason game, there are cuts to get down to a smaller roster size. And by the time they make the final cut, you're looking around the room and half the people that you started out with 1 month later, they're gone. And so I knew in order to stay there, I had to continue to perform. I had to continue to impress. And by my second year in the National Football League, I was a starter for the Cincinnati Bengals. We do become a winner. We go to the Super Bowl. We play the San Francisco 49ers in a game down in Miami. But I was proud of what we were able to do early on.
Almost beat them.
Joining that team. Yeah, we almost beat them 40 seconds away, but Joe Montana did his normal thing, right? And he walked away with the trophy.
One of my favorite memories I've heard, anecdotes, is that Jim Breach, my friend, who kicked the third field goal with a minute left, and they've got this chance. It looks like they may well win. And Joe Montana gets in the huddle. He looks at everybody and goes, "Is that John Candy in the front row?" And just totally knocked them off, their sense probably of the pressure in front of them,
yeah,
to help them just relax and get it done. So let's shift to that, which is daily, even today, for you, Solomon Wilcots. For me as a kicker, what I learned was how I got better as a kicker had to do with my preparation and my ability to visualize the game situation, how much the stadium smelled and the wind, and to visualize and to feel my own state, project my state. So when I was practicing in the weight room, when I'm kicking, I'm thinking situations. I'm also practicing as much as I can, like it's the game at game speed. That's what Pete Carroll did and has done for USC, and now with Seattle. And the great coaches understand that you can practice at three-quarter speed, but it's never the same as it's going to be with the adrenaline, the intensity of a game. Football is so intense, so fast. So tell us about that and how you learned to prepare. And as you look at the great coaches and teams today, like the Kansas City Chiefs, like the New England Patriots, like the San Francisco 49ers, how do they prepare so that even though they're learning and applying some new plays, new concepts, because it's a new opponent, that they actually are doing everything they can to prepare for that actual situation, just like all of us, where no matter what we prepare for, there'll always be something we can't be ready for. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and we all know that preparation prevents poor performance, right? And so you have to be able to put yourself in the moment, whether you're giving a presentation, whether you're playing in an athletic contest. You have to know your opponent. You have to know the playing field. You have to know the environment that you're competing in, whether in business or in sports. And you've got to be able to walk yourself through every single possible scenario. In football, we call it situational football. There are third down plays, there are fourth quarter moments, there's moments within the final 2 minutes of each half that are really going to decide the outcome of games. There are critical moments in everything that we do, whether we're in sales, whether we're in business, whether we're providing a service. There's going to come a moment, what we call the great unknown, okay? But the more that you can prepare for all the scenarios, the better prepared you are going to be. And then some of it is just really about understanding that when that curveball comes, you've got to really be prepared to react and respond in a very honest and genuine way that's going to allow you to be successful. At the end of the day, what we try to do is eliminate surprises. That's really what preparation is about. When you can eliminate surprises and you know what to expect from your opponent because you've done the work. I'm constantly visualizing. I'm constantly going through all those scenarios, no matter what the business is, so that when the moment comes, I'm like, it's no surprise to me. and I already know what response is going to be appropriate for that situation. You said it right. There's no way you can prepare for every single thing under the sun, but there's no sense of having anxiety when those moments arrive, because at some point in our lives we have been through those things. I don't know that there's something new, particularly when you've had some history. After I've been in the National Football League for a while, a team may try to do something that's outside of their character, but it's also something that I've experienced before. Maybe it was in another contest with another team. And maybe if you're in sales, it was something that someone had done before that you had experienced with another client. So we have to be able to rely on our past experiences to also help us to prepare for some of those things that may not have been in the cards for this particular moment or this particular contest, but we can fall back on some of those past experiences to help us in those current moments.
Speaking of Joe Montana, I got to play with him my last year with the Chiefs and with Marcus Allen, and not to mention Derek Thomas, and three of the greatest players in the history of the game. And I learned something. Here's Joe Montana for the people that are watching. 4 Super Bowl championships, always it come from behind, talent for getting it done when it mattered most. And what I watched and witnessed is I knew he would be good in the games. I knew in the fourth quarter he'd be relaxed. I knew he'd find a way. But then I saw that he was like a conductor of a great symphony in practice. And every single pass, Solomon, was exactly on target. It wasn't here, which would be acceptable to so many people. It was right in the breadbasket so that the receiver would catch the ball and keep running, not lose stride. And he would do that time and time again. That's the first lesson for me. The second thing is Marcus Allen. He would take a handoff and run the length of the field. And he would also do something in a game that I thought was a great lesson as well. He would score the touchdown, and then he'd walk calmly over to the referee and hand the ball. He didn't go crazy because he scored a touchdown. He didn't go crazy because he made a tackle or because he made a great play like some of today's players seem to do in the first quarter and the second quarter. And I'm just pulling my hair saying, shut up, go back to the huddle, and win the game. And after the game, I'll fly to wherever you are and we'll all celebrate together. But shut up, you're paid millions to do that. So Marcus Allen's point was act like you've been there before. Act like you've been there before. If I kick a field goal and it's a 38-yard field goal in the first quarter and I'm jumping up and down, hello? So all I do is I do that. That's it. Now, if I had the game winner and the game's over, it's now over, I'm going to go like that and have a lot of fun. But today's players and our culture want so much instant gratification that they forget that it ain't over, as Yogi Berra would say, till it's over. Tell us your perspective on that.
Well, I think it's always important to have some form of poise, right? And to carry with you a certain level of dignity. I think you're right. The expectation of success is part of it, right? That's why we put the work in. That's why we have, so many hours of detailed preparation. We expect to be successful in those critical moments. But I do think it's something to be said for those people who are very successful. They don't have to gloat. They don't have to remind people how great they are. And I just really believe that everything that we do, it echoes, right, throughout history. I think, I talk to young players today. I said, one day your kids are going to be watching. One day your grandkids are going to be watching. They're going to go back and they're going to watch the video. They're going to say, Granddad, is that you? Is that you behaving that way? Yes. And so I do think that we want to step back and at least have some understanding that in our moments of success, that there are so many other people who have helped us get there. We stand on the backs of others in those moments of success, in those moments of achievement, that it's not just us alone.
Yes.
And so therefore, I think that it does offer a sense of humility. It does offer a sense of poise and dignity as part of that moment of success. You can always, give it a shout a little bit later. You can always jump up and down a little bit later. We don't want to take away anyone's natural moment of celebration, but I do think it can't just always be about me. It also has to be inclusive. It also has to include all the others who have helped me get there.
You know, when you see Patrick Mahomes today, who's, you know, Super Bowl most valuable player this year, last year, the MVP of the National Football League going away, I think the most exciting player maybe in the history of the game. Of course, I'm biased, but he's up there. But he also has this humility and this caring for his teammates. So talk about how that sense of connection to your teammates and that humility, that sharing, which is football's greatest thing of all to me, is the teamwork, the sense of sharing, even for the kicker, to learn to share the glory, because you don't get much glory as a kicker. When you do, remembering that you're, even as an individual, still always part of a team. That humility that Patrick Mahomes has. What did you see? Who was a teammate on Cincinnati in that Super Bowl season that embodied that for you?
Well, we had so many great players and just great people in our locker room. You know, we had a linebacker by the name of Reggie Williams, a Dartmouth graduate who served on the city council here in Cincinnati while he was a player. He was a guy that really took his platform very seriously. And he thought public service was part of what came with being a player in the National Football League. And he sought to serve the community as a sitting member of city council while he was a 14-year player in the National Football League. Anthony Munoz, one of the great left tackles in all of football, who later would become a Pro Football Hall of Famer, was always about service in the community. I remember coming into the locker room as a rookie, introducing myself to him. And I remember him saying, if there's anything you need, just come and ask me. We want to make sure that you're well taken care of. I'd always looked up to him growing up in Southern California and watching his career at USC, and then with the Cincinnati Bengals. He was a great teammate. Chris Collinsworth, I remember just watching him. There was a guy that every year in the offseason, he's taking courses at UC Law School and ended up getting a law degree. And it just was such a great poise and great presence in the locker room. We had so many great men. Tim Crumry, who was one of the toughest players I had ever seen in my life. Here was a guy that broke his leg in our Super Bowl, in Super Bowl 23 against the 49ers. He refused to leave the field. The guy had a very bad break of his leg, and they wanted to get him to the hospital. He wouldn't let him take him out of the stadium. He stayed on the sideline for the entire game, and then we thought we would lose him the next season because the injury occurred so late during the Super Bowl year. There's no way he was going to be back for the first game of the year next year, but Tim Crumry defied all reason and logic. Here he was. He wanted to take the field with us for that very first game the next year. Not only did he do that, he went back to another Pro Bowl. So I had so many examples of guys who helped me to understand that it was always about the team, that the team came first and that the team was very important. And what you learn through the many years of high school, college, and professional sports, playing with great men like that and for really great coaches, is that we can accomplish so much more in life through unity by working together. You cannot win. I don't care how much talent you have. If you're fractured, if you're splintered, if there's division amongst the ranks, it's going to be hard to even beat a very bad team. And so unity comes first, the ability to stick together and come together for one cause. As you well know, Nick, is one of the greatest thrills that you could ever experience as a human being. Working with other people to achieve high ideals, to accomplish great things, it's one of the best things that you could ever do because it teaches you that unity works. And there's no other way to achieve those goals but by having great unity.
You know, the other benefit of hanging in there and working through the great years and also enduring through the tough years is wonderful serendipities that happen. And I have so many today. I'll give you an example of your season and how it intersected with my life and somebody else you'll recognize. John Gruden came up to me at the NFL owners meetings, at the Biltmore in Phoenix this past year, a year ago. And he goes, Nick Lowery, wait a minute. I was at that game in Arrowhead. I was coaching Eastern Missouri State or something like that. I was a quarterback's coach and I was recruiting. And I went up there and I stayed at the Drury Inn got me some tickets to that game, and I was sitting right behind the goalpost. You guys are playing Cincinnati. It's windy as hell, and you kicked 5 field goals, and you kicked the game winner against a team that was going to the Super Bowl. And guess what? Chris Berman had me on before anybody knew who I was. I caught your game-winning field goal, and I got in a fight with the guy in the stands. And the security guards are watching at this NFL owners meetings. There are about 4 security guards within about 20 feet, and the animation of John Gruden. So he then gets down. This is a man who is now the head coach for the Oakland Raiders, who I think are going to have an even better year this year and be a bit more of a challenge for the Kansas City Chiefs, by the way. But he's been a great broadcaster on Monday Night Football. He's a bigger than life personality, and it was just great to see this guy being so funny and down to earth and just accessible as a human being. You could tell that in his view, he's been through the wars. He may only live one more day. He may live another 50 years, but he gives you all he is in the moment. And that's something that you experience, I think, from the champions and the winners. But anyway, so just a funny connection with that year. It was fun for me to beat Cincinnati. We only had 3 wins that year. So let's move on to giving back. And we're going to wind up with just your insights into how you take risks, how you get the courage to endure. But let's start with the perspective. Coming out of being a team player and realizing how grateful you are in your success or even in your adversity, what are the things that you have enjoyed giving back to and you do today? Because we at Kannaway, one of the things we do with Blake Schrader and Stuart Titus and our team with Echo Connection is we make sure that we give everybody a chance to support people that can't afford our products, that have kids with epilepsy or arthritis or any of hundreds of conditions, and we know that we can help have add some quality in their lives. So what would be the giving back for you today?
The quote that comes to mind for me is a quote that Martin Luther King used to always sort of use to help us and inspire us to live our lives courageously. And he would say, to see an injustice and remain silent, it makes us an accomplice. And that really is a call on every single one of us, that when we see something, now it compels you to action. It compels you to do something. And as I have lived, I've seen at moments in time our growth in terms of mass incarceration rates.
Yes.
And how many people are being sent to prison who are innocent. And we now know that through DNA evidence and through science, we can link the innocence of others and help them earn their freedom. And so I work with the Ohio Innocence Project. We have, there are chapters to the Innocence Project in just about every major city around the country, but it really does help people who have been wrongly convicted to earn their freedom. And so I try to spend as much as my time helping those people to earn their freedom who truly deserve it, who've been wrongly convicted.
Correct.
So I spend time helping there. Education is a real, it's a passion of mine to help young people learn how to read and learn how to write and learn the arts of poetry and writing. I think when we can read, we can learn more. We all can digest and deposit more information. So those are the things that are near and dear to me.
Awesome.
But as I have been blessed with the opportunities to grow in terms of my career, particularly after sports, I think you can't help but look for the opportunities to help others achieve their dreams also.
And you know what that does, it's such a beautiful thing you shared, is it simply digs deeper the core values that have always been part of who you are. I went to Lansing Prison with this wonderful 86-year-old grandmother, Sue Ellen Freed. She's been doing it for 20 years, maybe longer, and now with 11 prisons in Kansas. And she has a program, and we're sitting in a circle with 25 murderers, 25 guys at Lansing Prison, maximum security, and they're in life. Some of them will get out eventually, some will never get out. And they have a 200-page document. It's a blue book, and the prisoners themselves work through these really hard, difficult concepts of being disrespected and how they deal with it, of understanding integrity, and all these things that may have been missing links in their life because they may not have had the coaches that I was lucky enough to have, that you may have been lucky enough to have. They may not have somehow been able to connect those things. And every one of them, I have to tell you, I see such humanity. And that's why I love the work I do, whether it's work with Native American kids or the homeless. You get this. I mean, there's humanity in every single person, and there's redemption in every single person. So I love that you are going to help us end our show thinking about that all of us have greatness, that have a champion in us, that have, all of us have made bad mistakes, missed field goals, game winners, let our friends down. And yet, if we learn, if we think of the deeper lessons that God's given us, we can turn that into something truly beautiful. So last question for Solomon Wilcots. You're a champion truly off the field as well, in the real world, which we know today really matters. Bringing unity, bringing courage, bringing encouragement. What is a quote? You already gave us one from Martin Luther King. Is there a person that today you admire, that you would point to and tell the kids that you meet with and the prisoners, follow that person. That person is part of the answer that you can be part of.
Well, the quote that comes to mind is from someone who's now deceased. If I was thinking of someone who is a living embodiment of kind of what we stand for and what we represent, you know, I've gotten to meet Michael Jordan. I've gotten to play in some of his golf tournaments and spend time with him. And I watch the way that he carries himself and the people who he's surrounded by. Some of them are lifelong friends. People have really worked hard to sort of build their lives in a very positive way. And those are the kind of people that he surrounds himself with. He really is about uplifting the community. He's about economic empowerment. He would have this saying, right? He says, it's small at the top. And I remember looking and thinking, he was like, well, you know, the bricklayer in New York doesn't know the bricklayer in Los Angeles. He said, but you can bet the CEO in New York knows the CEO in Los Angeles, or, you know, in two different cities, even though they're on the other side of the country. What he means by that is that we need to carry ourselves with great integrity, with great honesty, and be very genuine about how we conduct ourselves, that you can't hide who you truly are because people are going to see through that. And the people that matter, who are making critical decisions about your future, are going to see through that. And so that's his way of teaching people that as you go about your day-to-day lives, the people that matter and people that are going to be making these decisions, we need to be consistent about who we are and about who we claim to be. Because one day you're going to walk in a room and the two people are going to know each other. They're going to say, wait a minute, this is a different Solomon Wilcots, or no, this is the same Solomon Wilcots that I met. I believe in this guy. He's wonderful. He's consistent and he's genuine. So I think it's just a really good slogan that speaks to the integrity that we all ought to have.
So you've been watching The Last Dance. For those of you that are Americans, and it's probably making it around the world now, but it is so beautifully done because it helps you realize the constant pressure that Michael Jordan was under. And of course, the impossible standards he was held to. Of course, he always held himself to an even higher standard. And so I definitely want to celebrate that. Here's a guy who was criticized for not doing enough. And even in the last couple of weeks, he's announced that along with Nike and his Air Jordans, they're going to contribute $100 million over the next 10 years to racial injustice and to racial justice and to solving some of these issues that have been at the forefront of division in this country. So all of us can give back. So I want to thank Solomon Wilcots. I want to thank all of you for watching. And I want to leave you with this quote, which has always meant a lot to me. And it's just something I said in a speech 30 years ago. It's not the brightness of the spotlight on you. It's the intensity of the light within you that is truly the measure of a human being. Thanks for joining us. Solomon, thank you, brother.
Thanks, Nick.